The Money Show with Bruce Whitfield is brought to you by ABSA CIB, supercharging Africa's sustainable energy future and collaborating with their clients at the 2023 Africa Energy Forum to enable the continent's renewable energy transition. ABSA is a registered FSP.
The Money Show.
Personal finance.
Tonight, the magic, the power, the awesomeness, the danger, the risk, and the devastation that can be caused by credit cards. I think all of that is appropriate. Nicole van der Munckhof is a certified financial planner at Independent Securities. Are you a fan of the credit card?
I am a fan of the credit card, but only when used responsibly.
No, but I think people are going to burn us as heretics.
Yes,
because
definitely.
Most people see credit cards as incredibly dangerous, financially destructive products, because what they do is they say, we will give you money for nothing. You don't have to pay us back. And at the end of a period of time, which is always hard to define because it's written in funny language and the dates are weird, you don't even have to pay us back everything. Because if you've spent 100 Rand, we only need 7.50 Rand back. It's okay. You just pay us off 7.50 Rand a month and you can afford this much credit.
Yeah.
And you go, wow,
Amazing.
that's amazing. What nice people these are. And before long, you start realizing that the amount that you're paying off every month is not bringing down the amount of debt that you have on your credit card, because you've fallen for the oldest trick in the credit card book, which is you become a revolving client. You become the client they want.
Exactly.
And credit cards are amongst the most expensive credit items you can get anywhere in the world. I think it's fairly universal, right?
Yes, very much so. So they can be great. They can be very useful when used appropriately, because they do have that interest-free term that you were alluding to, and it can be quite difficult to know exactly what that term is. So again, it's very important to shop around and to know essentially what you're buying. But before we even talk about credit cards, Bruce, I think it's important that what we really need to know and what we really need to do before you take on that burden and that responsibility of owning a credit card, make sure that you know what your budget is and use your credit card to facilitate your budgeting and your budgeting process, and making sure that you're living within your budget on a monthly basis. And I think that's what's really important, and that's where the power of a credit card lies. I think the danger is very much there, where you can get yourself into a trap, as you just correctly pointed out. Eventually you're paying and you're paying and paying and nothing's coming down. The purpose of the credit card, or when used correctly and paying off the credit card on a monthly basis, and using the credit card facility to fund your lifestyle and then pay that off, when the salary comes
In full.
in full. Don't fall for the trap of only paying 75%. Pay what you owe. Start on a clean slate every single month.
Somebody made a mistake and contacted me outraged that, and I'm making up numbers here, but it was something similar to this. They owed 10,000 Rand on the credit card, and for whatever reason, they paid off 9,999 Rand. And they went, oh, well, that's not serious. It's just a Rand. I'll sort that out next month. They got nailed for interest on the entire outstanding balance of 10,000 Rand and were enraged. And I said, did you read the T's and C's? Oh, yeah, of course I read the T's and C's, but you've forgotten the bit where you agreed that if you didn't pay it off in full, you would pay interest on the entire outstanding amount. And this is where a lot of people do get caught out, where they might, say, spend 1,000 Rand and think, oof, I could pay it off over a year. There's a bit of interest, but I can pay it off over a year, so I'll pay off 100 Rand a month. What they don't realize is they pay off 100 Rand a month and they think they're paying interest on 900, but actually, no, they're paying interest on 1,000.
Yes.
And next month they paid off another 100. They think it's going down to 800, but they're still paying interest on the outstanding balance of 1,000.
Exactly.
And that's the problem with it.
And that 1,000 then quickly becomes 2, 3, 4,000 Rand before you wipe your eyes out, basically. So it is important. It can be a great tool. And that's where we get into budgeting and why budgeting is important.
Let's talk about budgeting in a moment.
Okay.
I want to share my biggest credit card
Blunder.
Blunder is the word I'm looking for. And have you ever blundered with a credit card? Have you ever made a mistake and felt like a bit of a twit?
I have, but only because I've paid the post office, which was not the post office, twice. It's a very long story.
Let's not go into that. Many years ago, I had a very nice credit card offering that offered me lots of points, which I don't think I ever used for anything. But it offered me lots of points. And I figured out that if I bought foreign exchange on my credit card, I could get all of these points. And I felt so clever. What I'd failed to compute at the time, and I'm wiser now, thank goodness, is I was effectively doing the same thing as a cash withdrawal. Because if you draw cash on a credit card, you not only don't get the free credit for a period of time on the card, but because it's a cash transaction, you start paying interest on the moment you draw that cash. And this is how long ago it was, bought traveler's checks to go internationally and went overseas and had a nice holiday and came back and suddenly got a credit card bill with this by my standards then, an astronomical figure, and was deeply put out by this. And that's one mistake you don't make twice.
No, I can imagine. And that's why it's important to read those T's and C's, and they can be quite daunting. And so to make sure that you really understand them and understand what you're buying into, because it can be quite you can burn your fingers. But as you say, often those mistakes are only made once.
No, exactly. You don't make that mistake twice. Yeah. You really don't. Okay, so within the framework of personal finance and the credit card, which is this product, which gives you an opportunity to spend somebody else's money interest-free for up to 50 days or whatever it is. I never know how those time frames work. I just get a direct debit that pays off my credit card in full every month. No questions asked. But how do you ensure that you approach it with the right thinking?
So the first thing you want to do, Bruce, is you want to set up a budget. We know times are tough at the moment, and it's a good time for all of us to review our budgets. I often hear people say budgeting is tedious, it's boring, it's time consuming, all of those things. And sometimes, we go through the process of setting up a budget and we kind of have a fancy Excel spreadsheet and never look at it again. But it is important. And what you want to look at when you're doing a budget is you want to be honest, you want to be realistic, and you also want to start to understand and learn what is your relationship with money, because that's very important. And if you don't have the right relationship with money, then a credit card is certainly not for you. If you kind of see it as a blank check, you are going to burn your fingers. So getting back to budgeting, when we look at budgeting, there are really three things that we want to look at, and those are the needs. So things that we need to spend money on: rent, water and electricity, levies, your cell phone bill, to a certain degree. Food, yes, exactly. Kind of the staples that you need to live on. Then we look at wants, and that is, anything we want: makeup, a haircut, all of the niceties of life, eating out, takeaways. Those kinds of things are more on the one side. And then we get to basically servicing debt and saving. And that one is obviously important. So you want to pay off debt as quickly as possible, and you ultimately want to pay your future self first. So that's kind of the ballpark figure. In terms of how much to spend where, the golden rule is you want to spend around 50% of your income on your needs. Then you want to spend 30% on your wants, and you want to pay yourself and pay your debt off 20%. That's kind of the ballpark. Broad. There are other theories.
A lot of people will say, "Who is this woman? She doesn't know what she's talking about. She doesn't know how little I earn. I don't have 20% left," because we're barely making things meet at the moment. But this is ideal.
Yes.
This is what you should ideally be doing.
Yes. So once you've now established more or less what your discretionary spending every month is, then you can start playing around with a credit card. So really there are two kinds of things you can do. The one is a kind of safer option, and that's where you take your salary, or you take that discretionary spending amount that you're going to live off of day to day, so your day-to-day spending, and you put that onto your credit card. And essentially you use your credit card then as a debit card. Interest on credit cards aren't as high as in savings accounts, but at least you are still earning a little bit of interest. You're still racking up a good credit score. You're still getting all of those advantages that you get from having, healthy credit habits. And you still have a facility to credit if you need it.
So why would you bother doing that when you could just use the debit card?
So I think it's just getting into that good, because you're not putting all of the money from your debit card onto your credit card. So it's making you make the distinction. It's making you stick to a budget. It's making you kind of track things. And really that's the important thing with budgeting, isn't it? We can draw this lovely picture and draw a dream, and it's all airy-fairy. Mm-hmm. But if you're not going and looking in and tracking, what's going off of your statement, then... Yeah.
I experimented fairly recently. Okay. I just left my cards at home and I had some cash.
Yes.
I spent almost nothing because I suddenly realized what things cost.
Yes.
And here's the danger of cards, because when you tap a card, or worse, your phone nowadays, because
Or your
it's
watch.
it's loaded. There is no pain. There is no separation anxiety. There's no direct relationship with that transaction. You want, you go, you get, you take, and off you go.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And
Interesting.
that is dangerous.
It is dangerous. And interestingly enough, I have a lot of friends who are completely the opposite. If you give them cash in their hand, well, this is not linked to a bank account, so this is now free money.
It's monopoly.
I can do with it what I like. So if they go to a
Such
shop
an
and
interesting mindset,
exchange
yeah.
something and the shopkeeper gives them cash, then great. I now have an extra few bucks to go and spend on something else. So it's interesting how the mindsets change. And that's why I say it is important to start realizing, but what is your relationship with money and how do you perceive money? Because that's going to drive you. I have a very good friend and she always quotes to me, when I talk to her about saving and investment, she'll always quote to me the line from Sex and the City that says, I like my money where I can see it, hanging in my closet. This is the worst advice in the world. We're getting way off track, but
We're not off track. We are exactly on track, I believe, here, because it does foment a certain kind of behavior, and that behavior is a consumption-led behavior,
Yes.
and that's why banks like to dole
yes,
these things
she's
out.
their perfect client.
There was a time where the banks were doling out hundreds of credit cards, and you would go through the airports and you would get an SAA branded credit card. Nedbank was issuing them at the time. Everybody was issuing cards. It's in to fight directly with Nedbank. But you would get a Visa card and an American Express card. If you used your American Express card, you got additional SAA Voyager miles. And it was just a feeding frenzy of rewards programs and credit extension, which all, of course, went kapoof in the global financial crisis because people were behaving massively irresponsibly. But people got themselves into a lot of trouble, and people were then getting multiple credit cards to pay off the credit cards to pay off the credit cards to pay off the credit cards. And that's when you get into a debt trap. Let's pick up on that in a moment.
The Money Show with Bruce Whitfield is brought to you by ABSA CIB, supercharging Africa's sustainable energy future and collaborating with their clients at the 2023 Africa Energy Forum to enable the continent's renewable energy transition. ABSA is a registered FSP.
The Money Show.
Personal finance.
So credit card companies used to do all kinds of tricks. They would give you a gold card and suddenly you'd have and you felt you had status. Oh, you had a gold card. Then suddenly everybody had a gold card because gold became the color of the credit card. Suddenly it wasn't so sexy anymore. And then somebody brought out MTN, somebody was going to bring out a titanium credit card, and then MTN Banking, which was a joint venture between Standard Bank and MTN, brought out a titanium credit card, and that ruined that for everybody. So they didn't do that anymore. And then black cards. Oh, black cards. And people would literally put their cards on the table if it had a zebra or a lion on it or whatever. The status of the card you carry became important. And that's why I think we get where the argument for credit cards begins to lose its allure, because then it starts becoming a game of silliness. Nicole van den Munckhof, who is a certified financial planner at Independent Securities. If you use it as a tool rather than as a bragging right, I think you'll be okay.
Yes, completely. So, we've touched on how you can kind of use it as a debit card, so you kind of put your money in there and you pay as you go. The second option that you can do, Bruce, is where you can go and take your discretionary savings or your discretionary day-to-day spending money, put that into some form of a savings vehicle. So either a savings account, money market account, whatever it may be. And then basically you use your credit card facility to fund your day-to-day life. And what's important there is that you make sure, so let's say the month runs from the 1st to the 30th, you've then got more or less, 20 to 25 days to pay off that credit card debt. So the idea is that the next salary that comes in then clears that debt because it was only your discretionary spend, and you should then have surplus amount left to pay for all of your kind of fixed expenses, rent, all of those things that wouldn't necessarily, run around and tap. Or swipe, or whatever the case may be. So essentially where you're kind of rolling your debt over every single month. So you incur the debt, you clear the debt, you incur the debt, you clear the debt. And if you can get into that kind of rhythm, that can be very powerful. And obviously, you're also then sitting with that nice lump sum in a savings account from that first month's salary that you've now managed to save. The idea is that any funds that you know, so if you have funds left at the end of the month, for example, on your credit card where you haven't spent quite as much as you thought you were going to, is then to save those funds in that same additional savings account again. So it kind of becomes this, it's
a money management tool.
Exactly, exactly.
And well, it should be.
Yes.
When you, however, do overextend and you do get yourself into trouble,
Yes.
credit card debt is the one you must pay off first.
Definitely.
And most vigorously,
Yes.
and have a huge amount of focus in on it, because
Yes.
it is the compounding effect. And I don't know what credit card interest rates are at the moment. They're sort of probably around 20% because of interest rates going up the way they had. It's punitive credit.
Definitely.
You know, if you've got an access bond, rather use that.
Yes.
If you have to borrow some money, if you have to be, against yourself.
Yes, and again, if you've now done it in this manner and you've got that first month's kind of save, or that first month's discretionary savings that you were able to put into a savings account, that can definitely help in getting that debt that you have incurred to clear that.
There is a small group, and I think they're a fairly small group, but they are the ninja warriors of financial products.
Okay.
They are the people who pursue loyalty programs.
Yes.
They are the people who, when they go and fill up petrol at an engine garage, have a Clicks card. Goodness knows what that... I still can't fathom why you get a Clicks point when you put fuel in the engine. It's beyond my understanding. But every bank has got a rewards program. Some you pay for, some you don't pay for. Some points are more useful than other points. Some allow you to pay the lottery. Some allow you to put petrol in your car. All of these things. There is almost like a cash back reward system. Should we be considering the relative value of rewards programs when making a credit card decision? Is it even worthwhile? Or is it just a time-consuming waste?
It's a very difficult question because it's often difficult to compare apples with apples because the terminology is so different.
Yeah.
So, and oftentimes... So I would say don't let that be your deciding factor.
Because also the goalposts are moved every single year. My goodness gracious.
Yes. And this year you're winning on the one, but the other one,
Once everybody works out the scheme, they change the rules.
Exactly.
And then,
exactly.
Yes, we've all been there.
So it definitely shouldn't be the driver of your decision. I think the terms of the card should be the driver of your decision, and that you're comfortable, that you understand how the card works. If you're not comfortable with the second option, I would say, don't go for it then. Go for the first option. Maybe you become comfortable at some point with the second option, and that's great. But, don't do anything that you're not comfortable with, and don't let bells and whistles drive your decision, ever.
And the colour of the card, it doesn't matter.
No.
It serves the same purpose.
No, I see there's even purple ones now.
Purple.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
They are purple
multicoloured. It's the United Colours of Benetton credit cards.
Yes, exactly.
Smorgasbord. Again, there are, if you are a regular traveller, you may like a particular level of credit card because it does give you preferential access to a queue. It does get you access to a lounge, for example.
Yes.
There are some benefits that are worthwhile, but be careful also because the goalposts are moved on a regular basis. The don'ts of credit cards: do not overspend on your credit card.
No.
Stay within your limit.
Yes.
Do not ever draw cash on your credit card.
No.
Because you pay interest from day one and you will cry forever.
Yes.
Always pay off your credit card in full, which is not the minimum payment, it is the total outstanding payment. And if you spent too much last month, suck it up. Because you will get yourself stuck in a debt trap.
Yeah,
I think those are the big ones, right?
The big ones, yes. And I think, it's not a blank check. This is not, you've got X amount to go crazy and go live your best life. We all want to live our best lives, but it's a difficult hole to come out of once you've dug it.
It's most dangerous over December, where you, and particularly because that's our holiday time, I suppose. In Europe, it'd be the August period, where everyone's having a nice time. And you think, but wouldn't it be nice also to do that thing?
Yeah.
I have to swipe the card. I'll deal with it in January.
Yeah.
And then January comes along, and there's a reason that's called January.
Yes, exactly.
Because we do tend to overspend on these things, and when we're having a great time.
And I think again, the budgeting discussion is important. So keep track. Maybe, budget better and keep track better than in those kinds of months like December where we know that we overspend. But a lot of the banking apps now and banking interfaces, they have great money management tools as well. I know of a few of the banks that have these great widgets and dashboards where they tell you exactly, and they do the categorizing of your funds across, they know when you've bought Mr. Delivery and Uber Eats, and they tell you it's takeaways. You can try and lie and say it's food. It's still takeaways.
I once had a conversation with a banking executive. He said they can predict divorce by looking at spending patterns on people's bank accounts. They say almost with certainty, because spending patterns change when
That's
people
amazing.
are falling out with each other. You can almost track regular dinners out, and suddenly the dinners out stop.
Yeah.
And suddenly activities on weekends are different.
Yes.
And like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yeah.
It's witchcraft. No, it's just banking. Or maybe
That's-
it's the same thing. Nicole, thank you very much indeed. Nicole van den Munckhof is a certified financial planner at Independent Securities.